The Soviet spacecraft Orbit triumphantly returns to Earth in 1983. Cosmonauts Veshikov and Abramenko, hailed as heroes, dream of resuming their normal lives. But as they complete their journey, an emergency unfolds. Their communication with mission control is abruptly cut off. At the same time, they notice something clinging to their ship, an alien life form. The next evening, Orbit crash lands in the Kazakh steppe. A witness approaches the wreckage and finds one pilot dead, his head shattered, while the other undergoes something horrifying. Days later, in Moscow, a disciplinary hearing is held for neurophysiologist Tatiana, known for her unconventional and experimental methods. She had nearly killed a teenager during a procedure, and the committee debates whether to fire her or turn the case over to prosecutors. Tatiana refuses to admit fault. Soon, she is approached by KGB Colonel Symbiote, who offers her a deal. He informs her that the orbit cosmonauts have returned, but their signal was lost 24 hours before landing. An accident is suspected, yet the sole survivor, Veshikov, has amnesia. Symbiote promises to make her legal troubles disappear if she cooperates. Tatiana accepts and is taken to a top-secret military base. Upon arrival, she is briefed on the situation and observes the lead doctor, Riel, attempting to hypnotize Veshikov, but the cosmonaut proves resistant. Determined to assess him herself, Tatiana conducts subtle experiments and concludes that Veshikov isn't insane, but shows signs of severe anxiety and sensory impairment, demonstrated when he holds a scalding cup without reacting. Given the prison-like conditions, she considers this a normal response and decides to return to Moscow. Symbiote agrees, but asks her to stay overnight, citing a lack of transport. That evening, Tatiana showers and takes a sedative, but remains restless. Unable to sleep, she goes for a late-night run around the base, only to encounter a hostile prisoner who blocks her path. Terrified, she is rescued by another inmate who urges her to return to her room. Back in her quarters, she receives an unexpected visit from Symbiote, who invites her to a midnight observation of Veshikov. Before they begin, he asks when she last ate, warning that what she's about to witness might make her sick. The colonel orders Veshikov's complete isolation, reinforced glass seals the room, and heavy steel bolts lock the door. Tatiana doesn't understand the precautions until nighttime observation begins. The room fills with armed soldiers, as if expecting an attack. Minutes later, Veshikov's body jerks violently before he collapses. He begins vomiting, and then something unthinkable happens. An alien organism emerges from his body, leaving Tatiana in shock. She now understands. By day, Veshikov appears normal. But at night, he loses consciousness, allowing the creature to crawl out of him. They share a symbiotic bond, each dependent on the other. Fascinated, Tatiana moves closer, studying the multi-eyed alien. It reacts aggressively, slamming against the glass, and she realizes the barrier is the only thing keeping her alive. Shaken, she retreats, struggling to process what she's seen. Symbiote follows her, revealing more details. He explains that Veshikov is unaware of the alien inside him because it doesn't harm him. The colonel presents her with a choice: sign a non-disclosure agreement and leave, or stay and find a way to separate them. Tatiana agrees to continue her work, but demands full access to all records. She learns that after the crash, Veshikov was placed in a clinic, where the symbiote first emerged, killing a doctor. Since then, no method has been found to remove it. Tatiana begins studying Veshikov and the creature, reviewing footage and taking notes. She approaches Dr. Riel for help, but he ignores her, fearing she'll steal his research. Undeterred, she reassures him she isn't after a Nobel Prize, she just wants to understand how the symbiote feeds. Riel claims it eats what Veshikov eats, but Tatiana remains skeptical. Meanwhile, she honors Veshikov's request to contact his mother and find his son, who was placed in an orphanage. During their next session, Tatiana deliberately provokes Veshikov, accusing him of insanity and murdering his crewmate. She claims he'll never return to normal life, mocking his Hero of the Soviet Union title. Her words enrage him, triggering aggression, exactly what she wanted. She analyzes his hormonal response, theorizing the symbiote feeds on stress-induced cortisol. Rial protests her methods, but Semiradov supports her, arguing that science demands sacrifices. Tatiana also insists Veshikov be moved from his cell to more humane conditions, allowing daytime interaction. The colonel agrees, hoping her methods yield results. Veshikov, now in a proper room, finds an old TV and watches the news, shocked to hear the mission was officially declared a success, with both pilots supposedly in quarantine. The lie shatters him. Later, Tatiana apologizes for provoking him, but refuses to reveal the truth about the symbiote. Veshikov, however, confesses he never knew about his son and vows to bring him home. That night, Tatiana attempts to communicate with the symbiote, noting it mimics her movements. She requests the glass be opened, entering the room in a protective suit. But when she stumbles, the creature attacks, injuring her leg. Semiradov rescues her, then faces the symbiote himself. Later, he visits Tatiana, revealing a critical discovery: Veshikov and the symbiote share memories and consciousness. Worse, the creature's time outside his body increases nightly. Soon, it may not need him at all. Tatiana uncovers missing footage and realizes Veshikov's condition worsens at night, but improves by morning, meaning they're feeding on something. Riel tries to cover it up, but Tatiana forces him to reveal the truth. The symbiote feeds on humans, drawn to their fear. Horrified, she plans an escape. Later, Regal informs her that they tried using mice, pigs, and other animals as food sources, but it didn't work. The symbiote feeds exclusively on humans, likely due to the cortisol produced by the human brain under fear. Tatiana is shocked and condemns such a method of sustaining the symbiote. The next morning, Tatiana arranges for Veshikov to be allowed a short jog around the building. Once alone, without cameras or listening devices, she decides to tell the astronaut the truth. She confesses that he is being held here because of the symbiote inside him, which is killing people. Veshikov is stunned and asks to meet at night. In the evening, the astronaut is supposed to take a sleeping pill to prevent the symbiote's interference. However, he spits out the pill and invites the nurse to his room. After slipping the sedative into her tea, he disables the surveillance and escapes, meeting with Tatiana. It is here that the astronaut finally admits that he knows about his companion living inside him. He feels the alien as part of himself. It kills people and shares memories with it. Veshikov deliberately hasn't told the colonel because he understands that he will be permanently isolated here. On the news, it was reported that after 3 weeks of quarantine, the astronauts would be released, and he begs for 2 more weeks, asking her to keep this a secret. Seeing him as a monster no better than the symbiote, the doctor refuses to help and runs away. Tatiana decides to return to her room, but is stopped by armed soldiers. When she meets with the colonel, she learns that his goal isn't to save Veshikov, but to separate the alien from the astronaut for further use of the symbiote as a biological weapon. Tatiana condemns the colonel's methods. Semiradov reveals that the food for the monster isn't just any humans, but death row prisoners who have committed horrific crimes and deserve such a fate. He admits that he shouldn't have hidden the truth, but he needs Tatiana. Tatiana and the colonel continue their collaboration. The next evening, they decide to observe the next feeding. During this event, the symbiote tries to intimidate the prisoner. Tatiana attempts to save the potential food and asks to be allowed into the cage with the alien. She feels no fear and sings Veshikov's favorite song, causing the symbiote not to attack her. But as soon as the prisoner tries to escape, the symbiote attacks and kills him brutally. Regal observes that the creature is adapting to life on Earth and has developed hearing. Semiradov proposes to start from scratch, promising Tatiana all the resources she needs. If anyone finds out about the experiments, the colonel will take full responsibility, so the doctor has no reason to fear the consequences. Tatiana agrees, but realizes that their goals are different. Tatiana conducts a series of studies and discovers why the symbiote chose Veshikov over the other astronaut. It turns out that the pilot had a hormonal imbalance caused by an early stage of cancer, which blocked the production of cortisol. This observation leads to another crucial conclusion. The hormonal imbalance could be used to separate the host from his companion. Tatiana proposes a joint escape with Regal, as they are scientists, not criminals or murderers. Regal is hesitant, but ultimately agrees to help her with the plan. She attacks a guard, reaches Veshikov, and explains her plan: induce a hormonal imbalance to force the symbiont out, then get him to a hospital. Veshikov initially refuses, fearing the creature will kill others. But when Tatiana confesses she loves him, he agrees. Meanwhile, Riel betrays them, informing Semiradov. Soldiers corner the pair, and Veshikov, in a final act of control, releases the symbiont, which slaughters their pursuers. Soon Colonel Semiradov arrives and shoots Tatiana's vehicle in which they escape. The symbiote tries to attack Semiradov, but the colonel shoots his arm and injures him. He then captures it and pursues Tatiana. Veshniakov's health deteriorates as the symbiote and him have deep connection, and one's condition affects the other. Soon Tatiana stops the car and faces the colonel in one final confrontation. She tries to surrender, but the colonel hits her, and seeing her in agony, Veshniakov somehow utilizes the symbiote via his mind to attack Semiradov and his soldiers using his last reserve energy. The symbiote then crawls back to him as they cannot survive without each other. With Semiradov's gun, he kills himself, and the creature dies with him. Weeks later, Tatiana stands before an orphanage, holding documents to adopt Veshikov's son. As the door opens, she wonders,